Hey guys, it's Miss Birds again, and today we are going to start a fun little project. It has to do with drawing eyes, and it also has a little bit of origami in it too, which is pretty interesting and is really fun. So what you're going to need is start with just a regular piece of copy paper. I'm sorry, I'm using the video feature on my iPad, so it kind of zooms in a little bit, so you can't see my full paper, but just know this is a regular 8.5 by 11. Feel free to use some of the 8.5 by 11 that I have provided for you in your work packet or your supplies materials packet, because there is extra in there. So just take one of those papers. You're going to also need a ruler and something to mark with, like a pencil or a pen. What we're going to be doing is we are going to be creating an origami type eye. And once we finish completely, let me get my little example here. Once we finish completely, it's going to look something like this. So it's going to have tabs on the back, and if you push it out, the eye is going to open, and if you pull it away from yourself, the eye is going to close. So you're actually going to draw an eye on the inside here, which I have already done on one of mine. And I'll show you what it's going to look like. But this is the origami part, the part where it's actually going to be folded in. And to create this eye shape, we are going to need a perfect square. Okay, now we are working from 8.5 by 11 paper. Remember, 8.5 is the short side and 11 is going to be that long side, right? So what we want to do to make it a perfect square is I'm just going to cut it down. I'm going to leave this side 8.5. But I'm going to mark 8.5 on this side, my long side, and then cut off the excess. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is set up my ruler, and remember, on these plastic rulers, you wanna go straight to where I'm gonna put it on my inches side, you wanna go straight to where it says 0, because remember, the edge of the ruler is a little bit of space, but remember, we don't start until the 0 mark. So I'm gonna put the 0 mark up to the long edge of my paper, and I have my paper horizontally. I'm gonna make sure I have it nice and straight and even. And remember, we said the short side of the paper was 8.5, so I'm just gonna go through and mark 8.5 here on my ruler, right? The half mark is in between the 8 and the 9. And then what I'm gonna do is flip my ruler and use that mark from my 8.5 to create a line going down. And I'm going to try and get it as straight as possible because we want to make sure we're working with a perfect square. Okay, so I have my nice little line here. So this is the part that we're going to be taking off. And what we are left with is a perfect square. And again, it's zooming in on my camera so you can't see everything, but you get the point that this is going to be my square shape. Okay, now if you have scissors, you can go ahead, feel free to cut that line with scissors. If you don't have scissors, a good way to do it is to flip your paper on the opposite side or the back side of where you made your mark, and you're just going to fold your paper over until you start seeing that line, and you're just going to fold right onto that line of your paper. Okay, so I have that folded. It's folded on this side, right? The crease is exactly where the line is. And I'm just gonna kind of keep folding it back and forth to loosen the bond of the paper, right? Make the paper a little bit weak. You can even kind of lick the paper, right? And it will help. But if you do it enough times where you fold it, you don't really have to lick it. You can just keep folding it back and forth, and it will rip on that crease. Okay, so I am left with this beautiful square shape. And this is where we're going to start doing the origami part. And origami is essentially just paper folding. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put my paper this way. I'm going to take this corner here, and I'm going to line it up with this corner right here. And the thing with origami is we want it to be as perfect as possible. So the better you can line up your paper and the creases, the better it's gonna look in the end, okay? If you don't line it up exactly, you're gonna get some spaces where the folds aren't gonna line up exactly perfect and it's gonna look a little off. So what you wanna do is go through and make sure you've lined them up as perfect as possible as you can. And then what I like to do is from the center of where my point is, I just like to take my finger and hang on. Just wanna make sure it's exactly perfect here. So I have that right, my corners are lined up nicely. And then from there, and I keep pushing it over when I do that. Okay, so from there, I'm going to go straight down to the center of my fold, and then one side and the other side. And I can see that I didn't do it perfect because look, it's off. So I'm going to refold it again. I'm gonna just line those up and refold it again. There we go, that's better. Okay, so this one's not gonna be exactly perfect, but I think I kind of fixed it for the most part. Okay, so after you folded it this way, we're going to unfold it and we're gonna do the same step but in the opposite direction. So I'm just going to rotate my paper and I'm gonna take this corner and now line it up with this corner over here. Okay, I'm going to fold down to the center and on one side and the other side. Okay, so when we open it up, you should have a fold going from this corner to this corner and a fold going from this corner to this corner. So essentially all we did is we took one corner, lifted it up, took this corner, lifted it to the side. So you should see a fold that creates a square or 4 different spaces. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, after you have that part, is we're gonna take this corner here and I'm gonna fold it up to that center point. So I'm just going to line up my crease with my center point, fold it down like that. And I'm gonna do the same thing to the opposite side. So I'm just gonna rotate my paper. Again, I'm taking my corner piece at the bottom and I'm folding it up into that center point where all of my lines meet. Okay, I made sure I have it nice and even. And there we go. So now your shape should look like this. It should have a point on either side and both of those points meeting in the center to where the top is flat and also the bottom is flat. So the next step before we start drawing is we're gonna go through and we're going to take this corner and we're gonna fold it up again to this halfway point line, our center line. So I'm gonna go there, line it up, and I'm just gonna flip my paper and do the same thing. So I'm taking this straight edge here and I'm just folding it up here to where our center line is again. And then you should have this type of shape. It should be a long, skinny rectangle with your 2 points on the edge. Okay, so now I lied to you before. I said this was gonna be the last step before we start drawing on it, but it's not. We actually are going to take this, okay, that we've completed, and we're gonna open it up. We're gonna open it up all the way. So you should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different long horizontal spaces, okay? And after it looks like this, what we're gonna do is we are going to take this corner where this fold is, and I'm going to, it looks like it's kind of going down, right? I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna fold it in towards me. So right where the crease is, I'm just gonna fold it so it matches this first line here, this first crease line. And I'm gonna do the same thing to my bottom one. So I can see that the crease makes it look like it's folding down this way, so I'm just gonna take it where the crease is, and I'm going to fold it up. And then, this is the last step before we start drawing, is we're going to take these and we're just gonna fold them down once more. Or I guess this one's gonna be folded down, but this one's gonna be folded up. So then you're gonna be left with this shape here, okay? So you should see two kind of long spaces, long horizontal spaces in the center. This will kind of be like a parallelogram, right? Or a trapezoid. It's a trapezoid, not a parallelogram. And then we have the points on the side still. Okay, so this is where you're going to start drawing. So you're going to put your eye in the center, and it doesn't matter what kind of eye you do. You could do a human eye, you could do an animal eye. There's lots of different reptiles and mammals that have different types of pupils, right? So the pupil is the black part of your eye. And so you can kind of search around for different types of animals, and some of them have different very cool eye shapes. So you can draw whatever kind of eye shape you would like in the center. And I will go through and show you, this is the one that I did. So I kind of decided to do a cat eye, and I left in a little area of highlight, because remember, whenever we create a highlight in our eye, it's gonna make it look like light is reflecting through that eye. Which is gonna make it look realistic, and it's gonna make it look three-dimensional, like it's actually a sphere, right? Like it has light going in and reflecting through it. So that's how you make eyes look more three-dimensional and look more realistic. You wanna make sure you're putting in some type of highlight. Now on this one, I put my highlight in at the top because I was using a reference image, but I would say once I've gone through and I've folded it, it's really difficult to see that highlight being up so high once it gets folded to this part here, because you have to imagine that your eye is going to be in the center here, right? So unless you have it like completely open, it's going to be hard to see that highlight. So if you stick with a highlight kind of in the center of the eye, or maybe just like about right here, you're probably going to see it a lot better when it comes to once your origami is actually finished. So just kind of some things that you want to consider. Again, I had already drawn in or created my highlight beforehand, before I really knew what it was going to look like in the end. And just as a little pointer, I mean, I don't think I'm going to be able to see it very well once I come up with my full eye. So it's just something you want to consider of where you want to put your highlight. If you want to be able to see it and you want it to be very pronounced, then you probably want to put it more like in the center of the eye or the low center of the eye. If you don't really care so much about it being seen, then having it on top or really, really low is also okay. So just something you want to think about. So once you go through and create your eye, this is where we're going to start doing the final folding, okay? The final folding to get us to this shape here, right? Our actual origami eye shape. And the way that we're going to do that is we are going to take these pieces here, and just as we kind of folded them down or up before, we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to take this part and I'm going to essentially, it's just going to fold very easily because of the crease we already created. So that one gets folded down and this one gets folded up, so that we have this really long, skinny, rectangular piece with, again, our points on the side, right? We have pointed sides. So what we're going to do is we are going to flip this over, right? So this is the front because it opens up to our eye. So we want to flip it over. And I'm going to put it like this so you could probably see it a little bit better. The next step is to take our corner pieces, and again, we're going to match this corner piece up with this, you can kind of see it a little bit, the center crease of my entire paper, right? So my center crease is here, and I want the edge of this to line up perfectly there. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to set it back and fold it. And I think I already did this step, so my creases are already pretty much in there, so it's pretty easy to fold. So this one, right, I'm taking it from the corner, that point, and back to the center. Okay, I'm just going to flatten out my edges, and you should have this, right? Our corner pieces are now meeting at the center, and we have a long rectangle. Now this is the part where it gets a little tricky, okay? So we're gonna be taking this corner and we're gonna be folding it a little bit upward. So this corner right here where, and you can kind of see, I'm trying to get the light to catch where my crease is. Okay, so you can see that my crease is right here. So from the crease, we want to fold this paper up and so that it matches this corner. So this corner and this corner are going to be folded in. So I'm going to take from my edge here, my edge corner, and I'm going to go right to the center point and I'm going to start folding it up. Now this is not going to match that center line, but right where it starts to meet there is where you're going to fold it. And of course we want to make sure our paper is nice and flat. I'm working on this weird surface, so it's not completely flat on my end. Okay, so again, we're not folding necessarily up to the center line. We're taking our edge here and our edge here and folding it. Okay, so again, I'm gonna do the same thing on all of my other corners. So from my center line here, I'm going to take the edge of my paper and I'm going to fold it until it meets my corner there. So it's going to create a diagonal slant. You don't want to fold it to the straight line. You want these pieces to be able to meet like that, because that's what's going to give you the ability to open and close that eye, right? So those pieces should meet. So they're not going to the center, right? They're creating a diagonal line from where this center fold is going straight to the edge of the corner to create a place where you can kind of, with your index finger and your thumb, adjust, right, whether the eye is open or closed. So again, I'm gonna do the same thing on these two corners. So remember, we're taking from that center edge and we're folding it diagonally up to this corner in the center, right, where our center line meets up on this corner. So again, I'm gonna take from this side here, I'm gonna go up and create that diagonal. And this is kind of the most important part, because if you don't get this part right, your eye is going to look like something like my first fold. Look at how crazy this is. I tried my best on this first one, but look, this is what I did. So instead of going more diagonal with it, I went straight to that center line, and it's all messed up, right? I can't even like open, I can't even open the eye, right? So that's why you want to make sure with this fold, it's really important, because you want to get this shape in the back, right, to where you can open it easily. Otherwise, you're going to have something like this, my first one that I messed up on, right? And that's not going to work. It's just not going to work, guys. So, you know, even I make mistakes and have to do things over and over again. It's fine. So then what we're going to do is take, again, right from this corner, we're going to go up to this corner, right, creating that diagonal line. Okay, so our points meet, right? And if I push it down, it's going to open the eye on the other side. And if I put it towards me, it's going to close the eye, right? So flipping it over, and I had it upside down. If I push it towards me, right, it's going to open that eye. Hello. And if I push it away from me, it's going to close that eye. Okay, so after this, what you want to do is, of course, we want to go through and we want to color this part. So you already have the folds in, so you can kind of lay it flat and then just color this diamond shape. I did a cat eye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some type of texture here to make it look almost like fur. My first one, I was trying to do a dragon eye, which is still a cool idea, right? So you just want to make sure if you're doing an animal eye, you want to create some type of texture on the front, right? And this video is just going to show you how to do the origami portion. I will put an example, or I should be putting an example, you should have seen the example if the video is already posted, what it's going to look like after it's all done and I've created my pattern or my texture on this side. You don't have to worry about creating it on this side, but if you want to, it's kind of nice to be able to color the whole thing, so that way, you know, your corners don't look white while your front has that pattern on it. But there you go. That is how you create the origami eye.